Right, so today we are going to be dealing with the life cycle of Plasmodium. Starting with the basics, that is, what are the species which cause malaria. We have Plasmodium ovale, we have Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum, Plasmodium malariae, and we have Plasmodium knowlesi. Now, knowlesi is actually a pretty recent species which was not earlier known. We used to study only Plasmodium vivax, falciparum, malaria, but now we also have knowlesi. And knowlesi is actually zoonotic, right? So it involves animals as well apart from man. And one specific characteristic about knowlesi is that it has fever that occurs every day, right? So the fever is going to occur every day, which is definitely in contrast to the fever which occurs in the other species. So if we consider, say, ovale, for example, we have what is known as the ovale fever, the benign ovale malaria. For vivax, we have the benign tertian malaria. For falciparum, we have the malignant malaria, malignant tertian malaria. And for malaria, it's the only species which is causing quartan fever. That is the fever which occurs every fourth day in a span of 72 hours. Every fourth day, that is in a span of 72 hours. While Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium falciparum cause fever that recurs every third day, which is in a span of 48 hours. Ovale is also, like vivax and falciparum, causing fever that recurs every third day. Now, starting with the life cycle proper, right? For any parasite, we're supposed to know what is the definitive host, what is the intermediate host, which is the vector, how is the parasite entering the body, what is it doing when it enters the body. So starting with Plasmodium, all of us are aware that it's transmitted through the female Anopheles mosquito. Now the question is, which is the definitive host of Plasmodium, right? Prior to that, we should know what is the meaning of definitive host. Definitive host का मतलब क्या है? So definitive host is the one in which you observe the sexual cycle, and this is very important because many people think that the definitive host is man. No, the definitive host is not man. It's the female Anopheles mosquito. Why is it the female Anopheles mosquito? Because the sexual cycle, which we'll see, which is known as the sporogony, which involves meiosis, actually occurs in the female mosquito, female Anopheles mosquito. So the definitive host is the female Anopheles mosquito, and the intermediate host is the man, that is us humans. So we must always remember that the intermediate host is man, and the definitive host in which the sexual cycle occurs is the female Anopheles mosquito. The sexual cycle is known as sporogony. Now, if the sexual cycle is known as sporogony, obviously the asexual cycle occurs in man, and it is known as the schizogony. Now, schizogony is just a fancy term which is used because we observe the formation of something known as the schizont, which we'll see in the cycle has these huge number of merozoites which then are released into the circulation. We'll see in the life cycle. So how is the infection contracted in man, right? So when the female Anopheles mosquito bites you, it releases what are known as sporozoites, and these sporozoites are the infective form. So these spindle-shaped sporozoites are released from the salivary gland of the female Anopheles. When it bites you, from its proboscis, these sporozoites, they come out and they go into the circulation. But these sporozoites do not remain in the circulation for long, right? As soon as they enter the circulation, after some time, they simply go to the liver, and this is where the life cycle proper is going to start. So these sporozoites, after going to the liver, initiate the first phase of the asexual cycle in man, which is known as the pre-erythrocytic schizogony. As I said, schizogony, it's called schizogony because we observe the formation of schizons. These sporozoites, which were spindle-shaped, now have come into the liver and they get converted. They go into the hepatocytes and get converted into these circular trophozoites. These trophozoites further undergo division and turn into what is known as a schizont. And the schizont is going to have huge number of merozoites. Because the trophozoite divided, it formed a lot of merozoites, and now it has turned to the schizont. What will happen when the schizont is formed is the hepatocyte is going to rupture, right? And these merozoites, all of these merozoites, they come into the circulation. And once they're in the circulation, these merozoites released into the circulation are going to infect the RBCs. Within the RBCs, these merozoites get transformed into what are known as early trophozoites, and these early trophozoites are the ones which are nothing but the ring forms, commonly called the ring forms, which have the classical signet ring appearance. So they look something like this. This is the classical signet ring appearance of the early trophozoite, hence called the ring forms. We have the late trophozoite, which is also known as the amoeboid form. And what happens to this amoeboid form is it again gets transformed, divides, like this trophozoite did. It also divides and forms the schizont. The difference being that this, what has resulted now, is the erythrocytic schizont. And just like the hepatic schizont, this is also going to have a huge number of merozoites. Now what can these merozoites do, right? This cell, this RBC, is also going to rupture, and these merozoites are going to come out. Now these merozoites can either go and reinfect other RBCs, and this cycle keeps on continuing, or they can go and form the gametocytes. So because we again observe the formation of an erythrocytic schizont, this second phase is what is known as the erythrocytic schizogony. So what we have seen till now is that the sporozoites, which is the infective form, they enter the circulation, they move to the liver, divide and turn to trophozoites. The trophozoites divide to form merozoites, and the trophozoites transform to the schizont. The hepatocytes rupture, the merozoites come out. Merozoites are going to infect the RBCs. In the RBCs, we have the formation of the signet ring form, that is the early trophozoite, the late trophozoite. The trophozoite, just like the hepatic trophozoite, again gets converted into the erythrocytic schizont, which has a lot of merozoites. These merozoites can come out and infect new RBCs, or they can go and form gametes. Now, because we observe the formation of schizonts both in the liver and in the circulation, we call it the pre-erythrocytic schizogony, and because here we have the formation of the erythrocytic schizont, we call it the erythrocytic schizogony. The third stage, of course, since we'll be observing the formation of gametocytes, is known as gametogony. So these merozoites get converted into the gametocytes. Now what's noteworthy here is that the gametocytes actually differ in various species. In Plasmodium falciparum, we have the crescent or banana shaped male and female gametocytes, and in others we have round or oval gametocytes. Now, one thing that must be kept in mind is not all sporozoites which enter the liver are going to transform into trophozoites, right? We saw that sporozoites will transform into the trophozoites and the cycle will continue. But many of these sporozoites simply enter the liver and they get converted into certain latent forms which are known as the hypnozoites. Now these hypnozoites are important because there are many cases where the person is going to have malaria. We provided the treatment and malaria was gone away. The person was absolutely alright, and then we observe years and months later we again have another case of malaria in the same patient, right? That is what is known as relapse, and the cause of that relapse are these latent hypnozoites which remain in the liver and cause the disease a huge time after it has already been treated. So the latent forms, which are the hypnozoites, are responsible for the relapse of the disease, and these are seen in two species, that is the Plasmodium vivax and the Plasmodium ovale. So Plasmodium vivax and Plasmodium ovale have the formation of hypnozoites which are responsible for relapse. Now in the cycle we have come to gametogony. What happens to these gametes, right, which are formed? These gametes are taken up by a female Anopheles mosquito, and in the mosquito these gametocytes get transformed to gametes. The male gamete turns into a flagellated structure, and the female gamete as such is simply going to enlarge and turn to the female gamete. We have the eight gametes here, 8 male gametes, because a single male gametocyte transforms into 8 flagellated male gametes, and we have from every single female gametocyte a single female gamete. The gametes fuse and form the zygote. And the zygote then turns into what is known as the ookinete. And it must be noted that this ookinete also actually has the flagella. So this is also motile. And this ookinete then goes into the gut wall where it turns into an oocyst. And these oocysts now undergo sporogony, which is actually meiosis. And they turn into finally the sporozoites, which are the infective form. These sporozoites from the gut, they're going to go back to the salivary glands of the female Anopheles mosquito, and that is how the cycle will keep on continuing. So we can see that sporogony, or the sexual cycles, which is involving the fusion of the gametes, the formation of the zygote, the formation of the gametes themselves, as well as meiosis, is occurring in the Anopheles mosquito, which is why the Anopheles mosquito is known as the definitive host. What we can derive from this is, because meiosis occurred at this point, we can see that the sporozoites which infected us are haploid in nature, and there is nothing which occurs in the humans in terms of either fertilization or meiosis which can make humans the definitive host. So the definitive host is Anopheles and the intermediate host is the man. One thing that we should also know is that these merozoites, which are released from the RBCs, is what is responsible for the fever that we observe, because there has to be a synchronous lysis of the RBCs, and these merozoites have to come out synchronously in order for fever to occur. And this does happen, and therefore after 2 to 3 cycles of the erythrocytic schizogony, there is recurrent fever that we observe with each cycle. And in fact, if you understand the life cycle, we can come to the various clinical features. That is, we're going to have anemia, we're going to have splenomegaly, because there is massive hemolysis of the RBCs.